Welcome to Almost Pro, the sport podcast delivering you the untold stories from athletes who almost made it and the experts that guided them. I'm Frances, here with my co-host Laura, and today we're excited to welcome back our guest Phil Stewart. In our last episode with Phil, we explored his incredible athlete journey from joining the Victorian Men's High Performance Centre at just 14 to overcoming a broken neck at 19, then going on to compete on the international stage. His story of resilience and comeback victories is nothing short of inspiring. Today, we're diving into the next chapter of Phil's journey. After retiring as a gymnast, Phil has stepped into leadership, currently working as the high performance coordinator and men's gymnastics coach at Gymnastics Victoria's State Gymnastics Centre, the very place where he once trained as a teenager. Phil has many of his own medals and is now shaping pathways, building culture, and guiding the next generation of gymnasts to thrive under pressure. Phil, it's so good to have you back. We can't wait to chat gymnastics life from the other side of the floor.
Thank you, ladies. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it, saying the Victorian High Performance Centre in Victoria, but it's great to be here.
Do you know how many times I just said gymnast, gymnasts, and gymnastics?
Yeah.
It was mouth gymnastics. That was a lot.
Correct.
Phil, with absolute admiration, we relish in your journey as an athlete last week. This chapter is different. It's about you as a leader. Can you start by giving us a picture of your role today and how you came to be in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently hold the position as the State Gymnastics Centre High Performance Coordinator. It's a role that I've had in my mind for quite some time. I mentioned that when I did retire, I ended up going back to uni, and a lot of my university assignments were tailored around being a high performance manager and with the intention of being within this role. So it seems quite fitting to have finally found myself in this position, and I feel quite fortunate. It's been a great journey. It's had its ups and downs. I can recall not feeling too much of an identity crisis when I left gymnastics, but I found more of a difficulty once I graduated to kind of land that first role.
Yeah. The transition that you took from being the athlete into stepping into these sorts of roles where you became a coach, talk us through that. What made you first realize you wanted to be a coach?
Yeah, I've been informally coaching for quite a while as well. I'd say probably around the age of like 14 or so, just helping out various clubs and coaching alongside and trying to learn as much as I can, going to different development coaching sessions. It's always been a bit of a passion. And it makes sense when you have all this knowledge in this one particular area, you want to kind of share it and help out and also expand on that knowledge. And so I think I was formally sort of coaching around maybe like my late teenage years or so, just helping out with the High Performance Centre or various clubs. But I think where I earned most of my stripes were first started this business with my mate, Martin Kurz. We both went to Vegas in the early days. I just turned 21 as well. And we had a good trip away. And then inevitably we came back with pretty empty pockets and we go, how can we make some sort of a financial incentive for us to keep being able to have fun and enjoy ourselves and keep pursuing our gymnastics career? And so we had the idea of just coaching adults at first. And I think the recreational side has been done quite a lot, and that the adult side is starting to boom a little bit more. There's interest there. And we developed this adult gymnastics and classes that started off once a week. And then it just grew from there. It ended up being a business that had adult gymnastics and then also competitive gymnastics associated with that as well. It had a strength conditioning component to it as well, and also a physiotherapy peak health side to it. So it boomed into this quite large business. I certainly wasn't the mastermind behind it. My colleague, Martin Kurz, was, but I was happy to help guide him through and kind of build the business from there.
You definitely don't do anything in half measures. That's what I'm learning very quickly is it's just all in, full commitment. I love that. With the growth of this new business, what was the steepest learning curve for you?
Well, thankfully, my colleague was very conscious of not growing too fast, making sure that you do fit and target your demographic effectively. But I learnt my stripes there because he had a background in exercise physiology, and he was very much taking it through the lens of you're teaching adult gymnastics, but in a really safe manner. And it's interesting because it sort of flips the script to junior coaching, where a lot of junior athletes have a lot of enthusiasm and want to throw themselves at skills, but they may not have the strength or ability to do so. Whereas adult gymnastics, you might have these adults who have the capacity to do these things, but they're a bit more fearful because they acknowledge they're very conscious of what can happen if things go wrong, but it's about guiding them through that. So a lot of my coaching and where I learned to develop all those skills from both the junior side and an adult side was how can I deliver this in a safe manner that's appropriate for each individual person.
Was it hard teaching adults?
It was fun. I found it was certainly more relatable. They weren't afraid to tell it how it was. Like you can't get adults standing around in a line just waiting for their shot kind of deal. Like you got to keep them active and motivated. And so that was very much a learning experience.
How did you transition, Phil, from a coach in a business context to what is now your role in an institutional context? So Gymnastics Victoria and being in high performance there.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be successful in being the Gymnastics Australia men's gymnastics representative for the Athlete Commission. And so that gave me an opportunity to allow athletes to have their voice within my chosen aspect of the sport. I tried to hear what their needs were and then deliver that to the board or to the commission chair. And that sort of made a name for myself in that aspect. Additionally, when I graduated, as I said, it took a couple of months for me to figure out what I wanted to do and how to land that job. I went for many different roles with varying degrees of success. I was fortunate enough to then be accepted at Waverley Gymnastics as the high performance coordinator there. And I certainly learnt my stripes there as well, like in terms of dealing with high pressure environments. And it happened to be an Olympic year as well. And then there was an opportunity about 12 months later that came up where I could work for Gymnastics Victoria, the organisation that sort of accelerated my career, and also within the club that first kickstarted everything for me from a competitive standpoint. So I took it with both hands, and it's been an amazing ride ever since.
Are your days actually coaching hands-on?
So it's a dual role. So I have half of my role is performed in the office, where I'm managing the resources for elite athletes that will help them compete successfully at benchmark events or various international stages. I do that management side of things in the office for the first part of the day, and I do my coaching side of things the second half of the day with the athletes in the gym where I first started everything. So I'm at this crossroads where I initially came into it thinking I really want to be all in on high performance management, but I also really do respect the rapport that I get from the athletes and the feedback that I get in my coaching. And so I'm trying to torn between, do I take some athletes on the international circuit or do I also put my eggs in the high performance management basket?
And what does high performance actually mean in gymnastics? So for those trying to get better understanding of gymnastics, maybe they're contemplating it. What does high performance look like in gymnastics?
Yeah, I suppose it means athletes who are on the pathway or with the intention of achieving success at on the international stage. In gymnastics, there's 10 levels. I guess kind of like karate, where you achieve your belts. Level 10 is effectively the black belt of gymnastics, and you achieve that by successfully achieving a score each year. It might take you a couple of years to achieve that score, and then you'll be TID'd by various Gymnastics Australia coaches, and you're supported through that pathway. So when I refer to TID, that means talent identification. So that might mean your coaches are TIDing you. You might have the head coach TIDing you of the Australian team. It might be various staff members that are just acknowledging your success in the sport and then going, how can we provide resources to help them continue that success?
Right.
In terms of the landscape of the level 1 through to 10, usually the first couple of levels, maybe up to level 4 or so, is very much like a recreational, getting to understand gymnastics. Level 5 onwards starts getting a bit more competitive to level 7 or so. From level 1 to level 7, it's effectively routines that are constructed by the NSO, by the National Sporting Organisation. And then effectively, once you hit level 7, you can create your own routines from then onwards and based on
Right.
what your preferences and abilities are. And then once you reach level 10, that's sort of that last stone where you can compete internationally at a high level. And that's when you'll be doing World Cups, you'll be doing possibly Commonwealth Games, World Championships, Olympic Games. Yeah, you can't compete at those unless you've achieved that level 10.
Gotcha. Okay, there's an internal benchmark.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
So much structure. It's great though. It's a
It's
clear
honestly
pathway.
the most complicated sport in the world. And I struggle with it having been a retired athlete as well, because it changes every 4 years. Like there's a 4-year cycle. They'll change what's called the code of points. There's rules that govern how it's judged, how it's performed, what skills can be performed. So it's incredibly complicated, and each skill has a value associated with it in terms of its difficulty, and that's sort of how the routine is made up. And even someone who's only been out of the sport for 5 or so years now, there's the sport's in a new cycle, so it's hard to know what the rules are and how to follow it. And obviously, everyone could follow gymnastics when it was out of 10. It's very easy to see, but now you're seeing
Yeah.
routines that are out of 15, 16, 17, 18. So it's hard as a consumer or as a fan to understand what that means.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it does change in future in terms of making it a bit more approachable.
That's why
Yeah.
when we're watching it and it's got multiple numbers after the decimal point, we're all going, what is it
Yeah,
out of? What is
incredibly
the
difficult.
system?
Yeah, I would welcome a system where it's similar to diving, where it's still rated out of 10, but then the difficulty is possibly added on after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone's weighing up some mad mathematics somewhere in this system.
I know, absolutely. It's crazy. And it's honestly, in my opinion, the hardest and most difficult sport to follow
That's
and to perform. And it's a sport that still has that bias where, there's judges judging it. Like, I really welcome like AI being brought into the sport more in terms of telling you exactly where the deductions are, like what the angles are specifically, as opposed to it being someone's opinion.
AI is
Um,
coming in.
Yeah, they're starting to bring it in for sure. Yeah, because
Right.
a lot of the gymnastics deductions are based on, are you seeing a bent knee, a bent arm? What's the angle that they're catching a release on? And it's very subjective. So until they bring in an AI model that can tell you specifically and show you exactly how to achieve that outcome, it's going to be a bit biased.
That would be amazing. We see that across multiple sports, the greater involvement of technology from removing certain line umpires and tennis to referees and other sports, and particularly with gymnastics that involves so much technical skill, like you say, it could really see how that would be a real benefit.
Yeah. I went to a conference maybe 2 years ago, Sport Next, held in Melbourne, and they're talking about how they're going to start adding in computer chips to all the AFL balls or the NRL balls and soccer balls.
Right.
That'll tell you exactly if it's hit the post or if it's gone
Yeah.
straight in. So less of a need for the umpire and less of a need for stopping the play in order to let you know what the outcome is.
They did it, Phil. They got chips in
They've
the
got it in there
sharing.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it was culturally defended. It was people saying, the line umpires are part of the game. I'm interested to hear with gymnastics, what is the cultural response to AI coming in? Are judges deemed part of the story of gymnastics? Are they part
Yeah.
of a regality? Will they be fighting against AI? Are there gymnasts fighting against it?
Obviously, judges are very heavily involved in gymnastics, and there's a massive respect for them and what they do. And it's obviously not an easy task to be the one telling an athlete what they're doing wrong all the time. I feel that possibly a lot of judges might see it as attack on themselves, but I don't want it to be seen that way. It should just be how we're evolving the sport to further it for the better of athletes and for the better of the outcome. I would like to see it in some sort of collaborative approach where the judges are still doing their thing, but they're just using it as a crutch to ensure that the correct result is there.
They can go to the bunker.
Yeah, go to the bunker. Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I feel like there is a place for both, but in the research that I've done on gymnastics, I've also seen that where there are discrepancies in athlete selections, so where the score is what's stopping someone from getting to their Olympic selection or Com Game selection or whatever it is that they're looking to be selected for, that it often comes down to the judges that are at the center of the controversy because it is
Yeah.
still so individual. It still relies on humans, which therefore creates room for human error. So you would almost think there'd be a welcome component, there'd be a welcoming of
Correct. Yeah.
technology to take that
Yeah.
discretion out.
And those same instances are going on without the judges, where I'm dealing with policy that needs to be really, really defined, selection policy, because if it's not really, really defined, there's too much grey area. There's too much of an opportunity for someone to abuse it or to skew it towards a certain direction. I think it needs to be really defined. Gymnastics is still yet to kind of really harness that. And part of me being on the athlete commission is sort of bringing these grievances to the board and letting them know that, look, this is something that we're dealing with at the moment, and how can we make it effective for the next cycle.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Brilliant. And to be the one that's trusted to do that on behalf of athletes, I've no doubt is a major responsibility, but also a real privilege to be
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
table.
most certainly. And I feel it's amazing to be able to just be embedded in the community still, and to have those conversations with either existing athletes who've been in the sport that were training and competing at my time as well, or seeing the next cohort emerging, and then being like, "Hey, I'm Phil. Here's my face. If you need anything, just come grab me." So it's nice to be involved in that way.
What you're saying, Phil, is that that is a highly regarded position across the Australian gymnast community. And you're sitting in front of us, and our early conversations about you as an athlete was you saying, I didn't go to the Olympics, but I was an incredible athlete in my own right. And that now allows me to be an advocate for the sport that I'm so passionate about, to make a better world for the next lot of gymnasts who come through, who may or may not be Olympians,
Yeah,
but representing their
absolutely.
country in different ways.
I look back at my career and it was never really my intention to be the best athlete in the room, but to prove my worth amongst the best. And doing that through my actions and my behaviors and my creating a legacy and just being a general nice person to the community. So that's what I really look fondly on.
Gosh, I love that.
Gymnastics is lucky to have you, Phil.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Phil, when you're in your high performance capacity, you've obviously got this other hat now of being an athlete ambassador. You're toying with this concept of knowing that you love being out on the gym floor and helping athletes reach their potential. You're evidently very good at it. The ability to transition between youth coaching and adult coaching and elite coaching into high performance pathways suggests that you know how to coach people and get the best out of them. When you're looking at a gymnast, what are the signals you get that say this is someone we need to spend a bit more time with, or that needs to spend a bit more time here developing because we think they've got potential?
There's certainly some high performance behaviors that I value. And number one would be like taking accountability for your own training. Like I'm more than happy to be a coach and help facilitate these athletes and take them to where they want to go under my own resources. But if they're rocking up with punctuality, if they're performing the basics really, really well, if they're having shots at a high frequency and also learning from the mistakes, not making the same mistake over and over again and willing to challenge themselves. These are like my keys to athletic success. I'm seeing these early behaviors and I'm wanting to foster them.
I love that the first one is punctuality. You know, I think we've become so lax as a human race where we kind of go, oops, I'm late. We do it in so many ways because we're jamming so much in our days, are we
Yeah,
not? You know, and so
100%.
I love that that first one is punctuality. It's such a traditional value.
It's funny because gymnastics sort of began as a very militarized style of sport. Everything was very structured. So I guess punctuality still shines through.
So if I'm on time, if I'm showing potential, if I'm showing that I can do the basics over and over and I can receive feedback, you're looking at me. I'm going to be young. I'm obviously not
Yep.
adult enough to make my own decisions. How are
Mhm.
you approaching parents or guardians to say this person has talent and this is how their training's going to need to change from here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have parent meetings, regular parent meetings to guide them through that athletic journey process. We just had one recently regarding juggling academics with sport and
Yeah.
being open about what that looks like. Some athletes will choose to do like a year 13 and make their year 12 a little bit lighter in order to accommodate their training as well. There's many different routes you can go down, but honestly, it's regular conversations and regular touch points with those parents and with the athlete as well to let them know, hey, you're doing well. There's a ceiling that you can achieve, and there's also steps to get there. Are you interested? Is a big one as well. Like, is this something you want to do yourself, or is this
Mhm.
something that's being thrusted on you in any other capacity? But yeah, just those open conversations go a long way.
Is gymnastics still a sport where the parents aren't in the gym when their children are training?
Yeah, so when I was training, particularly at the High Performance Centre, there was like a no viewing rule, but thankfully we've sort of moved away from that. Parents, of course, can come up to the door and watch training.
Yeah, okay.
Working in this high performance environment, you've got a variety of athletes. I'm sure you would have come across some dedicated themselves to the sport, some whose parents maybe want them to be dedicated to the sport, and a whole spectrum of athletes coming through their teenage years in this high performance environment. What do you think athletes need most from their support at this level?
Yeah, that's a great question. The support should be highly revolving around boosting the enjoyment of the sport and making gradual progressions for success. We want to ensure that, yes, being in a high performance center does mean that there is a desirable outcome of performance on the podium, but also it should be a sport that you really, really enjoy day in, day out. You're training 26 to 38 hours a week. Imagine if you hate the sport or aren't enjoying it, you want to be able to um, foster that positive side of things. And that's really important as a coach and as a business manager to understand that it's not all about um, being the most highly perfect athlete all the time. Obviously, athletes are going to plateau as soon as they get too much of that mindset going on. So you need to kind of understand the calendar that they're working with, when the season is, when the main competitions are, when to peak, when to kind of have a bit of downtime. And that also needs to align with the athletes' university studies or their school scheduling around exams or around particular tests. And honestly, creating an environment where athletes feel that they can come to coaches and say, hey, look, I'm having a bit of a tough day today. Do you mind if we adjust the program accordingly? And that's really important as well.
So individualized. So we know gymnastics has one of the highest dropout rates in those teenage years, particularly in Australia, of many sports. Are we seeing that in the pathways that you're involved in, or once they're locked in a pathway, you tend to see them stick from there?
It's less so in the pathway that I'm involved in because it is the high performance center. Generally, they are training there with the intention of effectively being successful on a podium. So there is that mindset already coming into it. There's a general blanket rule, like you're looking at athletes who depart around that 14-year age because um, there's obviously higher pressures from a competitive standpoint. There's maybe higher numbers of training hours. So they might be thinking about schooling or academics a little bit further. It's teenage years. It's turbulent. It's you trying to identify who you are as a person, let alone what
Yeah.
sport I want to do as well.
I think as coaches, you have to wear so many hats. Not only are you the coach, on the mat, you're also your unofficial psychologist and life coach, and all of these different hats to foster the best outcome possible for the athlete. And I think where all of those things align and you have those great outcomes, it's a really special thing to be there for. You mentioned earlier there's 2 athletes that you worked with who reached the Paris Olympics. What stands out from that experience for you?
Look, I have to preface and say I felt incredibly lucky to be involved in an organization that had athletes on that pathway. And me coming in for 12 months wasn't going to make a huge impact. It was more just facilitating them and dealing with their needs in the best way possible. It was really ensuring that the coaching staff were well looked after. Um, those going to the Olympic Games and those not, creating an environment that was happy and healthy for athletes to thrive in. Also, just making sure that day-to-day operations went as usual while the stresses of the Olympic Games were going on as well. It's quite a tough time for the athletes, for the coaches, for the organization as a whole, knowing that there is quite a lot on the line, but knowing that whatever the result, that we're just pleased to have our athletes represented there.
What part of being a gymnast yourself benefits the role of a coach? Can I be a good coach in another sport and join gymnastics with a level of influence? Or are a lot of the coaches in gymnastics former athletes in the same sport?
I think there's certainly merit in being an athlete and a coach within that exact same sport. However, you can display fantastic coaching, technical and tactical abilities, having not performed in that sport to an elite level as well. I think if you come in it with a caring sort of nature and wanting to have athletes progress and you understand what it takes to get those athletes there, whether you've been an athlete yourself, shouldn't matter too much. The only thing that really does benefit is understanding the needs from a pressure standpoint, what it's like to be in that competition on that particular event. That will make a big difference. There's 2 sides of it. It certainly helps, but it's not the be all and end all by far.
How many of your students asked to see your tricks?
When it was at my previous organization, Waverley, I was always doing stretching with the team and always performing some skills. And that was a way of just me building rapport with the athletes as well. Here's a male gymnast coming into a female dominated club. And so I kind of had to build myself up and sort of show a couple of skills to get that respect. But then once that occurred, it was fun and games from then on.
Go since you were there as an athlete.
I retired in Feb 2020. Finished my uni degree in that 3-year time. Obviously got my first 12-month full-time role at Waverley. And I feel like it's just been a never-ending cycle of events since retiring. But yeah, it's great to be in that gym and great to see familiar faces. And it was honestly such a warm welcome being back there.
So
I
they
love
must
it.
have been younger athletes when you were there that are still coming
Correct.
through.
Correct.
Right.
And some existing athletes still there as well as the senior athletes. So as I touched on, I think last episode, like the longevity of the sport's increasing with the difficulty. So you're now seeing athletes who will my teammate Tyson Bull, who went to the Olympic Games, he was 30 when he competed there. So, and he
Right.
was still training. And so, yeah, there's a lot of faces that I still recognise and that were just below my tier, but still giving it their shot now.
Does that feel like a fast change for a sport?
Fast enough, honestly, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone took a leaf out of the Russian and the Chinese clip, which was just like small, petite, light, very easy to manipulate from a coaching standpoint, from a physical standpoint, putting the positions. And now that the difficulty's increased, it does really take that more mature body and a lot more hours in the strength and conditioning gym to achieve those results.
Mm.
And also means that athletes can be involved in the sport for longer and enjoy the pathway for longer as well.
And do you see the
Yeah.
numbers reflecting that of people staying in the sport for a
Yeah.
little bit longer?
Definitely, 100%. It's so notable across all clubs. I did see that the Olympic Games in gymnastics, each cycle is getting an older average participation. So I'm hoping that continues. It's a boost to athletes being able to perform for longer with longer stress on their body thanks to strength and conditioning, but it's also
Mm.
probably nutrition that's advanced and also probably psychologist resources as well. So a lot of things that are really making a big difference to keeping athletes in sport.
When it comes to a high performance center, I guess if anyone is sort of on the verge of, okay, I've joined gymnastics, I'm doing quite well at it, this is where I want to go. Is there a certain grade or number for athlete intake that high performance centers have? Is there a cap?
Not particularly, but we're very conscious of not having squads up to a certain level that might take away from the rest of the squad. So we'll generally try and keep squad numbers at say 8 or so. Any more, and it starts taking away from coaching time and time with the coach specifically as an athlete. I think the Gymnastics Australia recommendation is to have no more than 12 in a squad, but that's just generally across high performance and sort of that younger junior grade. But as a high performance center, we try and keep it a little bit lower just to ensure that there's that further time.
Gymnastics is just moving so quickly. There's so many different training methods and so much more of a holistic approach to athlete well-being. What do you sort of see as being the biggest opportunity for Australian gymnastics over the next decade?
I would say it's probably to do with boosting mental health, boosting the athlete voice. I think traditionally athletes across all sports may have felt that they've been pigeonholed a little bit or that they're just following orders or processes from the coaches. I think being able to have an opinion and being able to express what their assignments look like day to day, how they're feeling. So that's really a positive step in the right direction. But yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, I just want to have athletes enjoy the sport that they're in and be in it as long as possible. And whether you make it to the Olympic Games or not, you had an enjoyable ride and you want to give back in any capacity that you can.
Yeah. I mean, you've sort of touched on as well the financial perspective of athletes coming through high performance. In terms of the costs and finances they take on board to achieve their goals and the earnings or earning potential for the athletes, how is that sort of evolving?
I think social media has made a big impact in terms of athletes can be their own brand, and through that brand and through that viewership and through those follower numbers, you can then find partnerships and sponsorships through different brands that can help either alleviate your existing financial circumstances or to maybe provide products or gifts in kind that you would normally pay for effectively. So there's certainly more of that influencer sort of style of marketing going on, and I certainly welcome it. It's heavily needed. Being a nation where we're geographically so far from everyone else. So when it comes to an international competition, it comes at quite a higher substantial cost. If you're wanting to do a World Cup circuit and wanting to do multiple events across a couple of weekends, you're looking at 15 to 20 grand. And so more often than not, it's the athletes or the parents footing the bill.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that in sports more broadly, right?
Yep. Look at the NCAA's at the moment in terms of the athletes becoming more of a brand themselves and they're able
Mm.
to earn money off their performances.
Mm.
I think it's a step in the right direction for sure.
There's pros and cons in a system like that. I think what we'll find is that there's an element that says if that's the only way that they can raise revenue and pursue a career that they're very, very good at and not have to balance how close to burnout you can possibly get just to stay in the sport.
Mm.
I think that's a massive positive. I think giving
Mm.
independence so that athletes can make the decisions around how they obtain income to be able to deliver their sporting passions. The flip side of it is there is always this difficulty where we start to commoditize people,
Mhm,
where
mhm.
the athlete is the commodity. That is complex, and we're seeing the complexity of that in other sports. And if we took football as an example, so soccer, depending on which part of the world you're in, where the brand of the athlete is translating to phenomenal amounts of money. So the commercial product is the individual. It is changing the cost of access to some of those sports because money is kind of the center of
Mm.
of pursuit. And you see both sides of it. I think if I'm an athlete and the extent of my career is somewhere in my 20s potentially, in some sports somewhere in my 30s, I've still got a very, very long time left alive, hopefully. I need to be able to make as much as I can while I'm able to do this sport. So as an athlete, I get it, but we're trading these individuals like they're the commodity. And I
Yeah,
find that a
yeah.
difficult ask. The more commercial sport becomes, the more confronting the athlete as the asset is for me.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very interesting take for sure. I certainly agree with you there. I think the two don't need to be separate. I think you can also show results and simultaneously grow a following without it needing to be too much about the money. The two might come simultaneously, but you're right. It does seem to be a bit more of a product sort of thing. I would say that the terminology we used previously, a couple of years ago, was athlete-centered policies, and now
Mhm.
it's skewing to people-centered policies, knowing that athletes are people too, and it's not necessarily all about how they perform in the gym. Obviously, you want
Yeah.
to try and facilitate that, but also recognizing that they are people first and foremost.
We don't know what the line is at the moment, I don't think.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I love that gymnastics is creating an opening for the athlete to start to generate their own revenue streams, to allow them to generate their own brands, because I think that will lead to louder athlete voices.
Most certainly.
So many learnings
Very
that
cool.
gymnastics can take from looking on to other sports, as Francis was saying, the player well-being that extends past the life of their sporting career. Looking at it at both sides is going to be a really interesting thing to watch in gymnastics for sure.
Mm. Creating athletes who had such an enjoyable time that they don't resent the sport and they do want to give back is so important too. Obviously, we put high performance as this pillar of what the ideal model is and what we want to achieve. But honestly, some of the best athletes I've met who've given the most back to the sport have been people who haven't achieved that top tier result and just really enjoy giving back and want to provide those experiences, those reciprocate those same experiences they had.
Yeah.
I love the way you shaped that,
Yeah.
Phil. I love the way that you made the reference that they don't resent the sport so much they want to come back. That's
Yeah.
that, I've given everything and I've walked away with what feels like not much in return. And I mean, that's a bold statement in itself, but
Mm.
I don't want to step back in there. I don't want to be
Yeah.
involved in that. Yeah, fascinating.
Is there anything that you would change about the sport?
It's hard for me. It's a very heavily weighted question because I enjoyed it so much during its period when it had very little like mental health awareness, but I still thrived in it and had a great time. I think mental health is a big one, and coach education is always going to be a large pillar as well, considering the difficulties that gymnastics faces at the moment. Recognizing the abuse of power and the dynamics between young athletes and coaches and how to navigate that. Education is going to be at the forefront of change. But yeah, just I just want there to be coaches who know what they're doing, know how to not only deliver gymnastics, but also how to speak to human beings.
So important. And we've dived into the player pathways a little bit, but I guess from a coach's perspective, are there coaching pathways that are available through gymnastics?
Yep, Gymnastics Australia runs their own accreditation pathway. I'm actually doing a further upskilling on my accreditation. So there's something called the FIG, which is the governing body for gymnastics around the world, and they have their own accreditation that allows you to take athletes on the international stage. And so I'll be doing my next tier of coaching at the IAS in January, which is exciting. So it's just always that next step and always understanding that no matter what position you're in, learning is a lifelong skill, and there's always something you can do to kind of further your own development.
Especially in a sport like gymnastics that you've helped us to understand is moving quickly. Like by its own admission, it changes every 4 years structurally.
Hmm.
But it's moving faster than that in so many other ways. So I can see how you've got to keep staying on top of those skills in coaching.
Yeah, most definitely.
What is one piece of advice you would give coaches in gymnastics?
Don't take the results too personally. Every athlete's on their own journey and they develop at different times. You might have athletes in a squad doing exceptionally well and athletes who are not quite there yet on the same program, or you're trying to deliver it as an individual program, but it's just not quite hitting the nail on the head. The best thing I could say is time and trust in your own education, trust in your own processes, make adjustments where needed, but recognize that everyone moves at their own pace and they'll achieve success on their own accord.
And what would be one lesson that you've experienced as a coach that you would want to share with people coming into coaching?
As I touched on, I think the values that I hold as being a coach are being kind, approachable, and authentic. And that's really what I try and rock up each day going into it. Like, I want to make sure that I'm treating people with respect. People feel like they can come up to me, and I'm also someone who's going to be approachable and authentic in the way that I deliver my experiences, recognizing that, hey, I've been an athlete, I've been a coach, I'm a business manager as well. But right now, I'm just trying to get you to where you want to be, and nothing else matters in that moment.
Phil, at Almost Pro, our experience of you has been kind, approachable, and authentic.
Absolutely.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
That draws to a close our conversation, but you do not get out of here without a game of this or that.
Love it. Let's go.
Rapid fire, choose the answer that appeals to you most. I'm just going to roll them off. You hit me with your response. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Early mornings or late nights?
Late nights.
Vault or rings?
Oh, both of them were my least favorite, but I'm going to have to say I prefer rings over vault.
The vault is the nemesis. I love it.
Yeah, being tall and lanky, it was so difficult to get my body around.
Coffee or protein shakes?
Coffee.
Athlete or coach?
Athlete.
Juniors or elite athletes for coaching?
Elite, but I'm not opposed to either.
Beach holiday or snow holiday?
That's also a tough one. I'm going to have to say beach, but I'm a keen snowboarder as well.
Of course you are. Of course you are. Big crowd atmosphere or quiet focus in the gym?
Big crowd.
Strength training or flexibility?
Strength.
Comedy or action?
Comedy.
Cats or dogs?
I grew up with cats and I now own a dog, but I have to say dog now.
Text message or phone call?
Text.
Watching a gymnast stick the landing or watch them nail a skill for the first time?
Nail a skill for the first time.
Eat in or dine out?
Dine out.
Episode 1 with us or episode 2?
Oh, it's a toughie. It's so tough. This one's going to be a bit longer, so I'm going to have to say episode 2.
I love it. Well, Phil Stewart, you survived this or that.
Thank you so much.
Today, we've been joined by Phil Stewart, an athlete, coach, and now high performance leader whose journey shows how every chapter in sport brings new opportunities. From running his own coaching business to shaping the culture and pathways at Gymnastics Victoria, Phil's impact continues to grow. Phil, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Next week won't be the same without you, but you'll continue to hear us cheering for you as your brand permeates into the next generation of Australian athletes.
You are forever part of our family now. And to everyone listening from home, the gym, or on the go, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe to stay on the Almost Pro journey. And if you've got a story to share or know someone who does, we'd love to hear from you. Head over to almostpropodcast.com or social media pages at Almost Pro Podcast to get in touch.
Bye, team.
And now for this week's question from the grandstand. With technology changing so quickly, did you realize AI is already in sport? Should it play a bigger role in judging and performance? Or should it stay human-led? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.